Okay, guys and girls, great and glorious Nick Dutch here yet again with more delightful talk from tarot. And now we're going to have a look at the Judgment card. Now, we've got so much here. Let's start from the top. We got a phallic trumpet within a feminine circle. So we can see there's some obviously reproductive signs there, talking about maybe rebirth in its own right as a result of sexuality. The trumpet also means messages, and there's also a flag on the trumpet which is in a square shape, talking about the material world. So it's talking about messages being communicated through the material world, but this is a winged character, again a divine being or a divine message being communicated through happenings in the physical world. And the wings of this being are green, symbolizing a Venusuvial message. So it's a divine, loving message, talking about change, talking about a new direction. Alright, maybe it may even be frightening. Obviously we're talking about judgment, and judgment itself can in fact be quite frightening in its own right. If you've ever actually had to be in front of the police, for instance, because you've done something naughty, and like I had many years ago, but I got better, I'm telling you, because I went through the process explained by the Judgment card. This is talking about redemption. Now, what do you notice about the three characters at the bottom? You can see one of them's backside, and the other two, their backsides, are beneath the green stuff. This is not the beautiful green carpet of grass and flowers that we saw before. No. This is a constant uniform color. So this is like a slime or a mire or a swamp. But yet this box shape that this character in the foreground is standing in seems to represent something like a coffin. Alright? But why can you see his backside? You can't see the backside of the woman and the man with the beard. Because the two characters in the background are sinking, and this character in the foreground, whose face we cannot see, is rising up steadily and slowly from the grave, from the death, from the ultimate internal change and transformation. So in many ways this card could actually come after the death card, because it's talking about what happens next. It's a sense of redemption. I mean, if you've ever seen the film Pulp Fiction, for instance, that was full of symbolism of redemption. Whether it was the redemption of the suitcase full of money, or whether it was the redemption of the hand of God in the bullet from a really big gun not killing somebody. It's all talking about that moment of clarity and that moment of moving onward and moving forward. These sexual symbols of the trumpets in the circle is speaking about change in its own right. The death symbol of the coffin, that's speaking about change of a slightly different type. But they're all in prayer. Alright, so these two characters in the background have not gone through the process of change and liberation, the internal change, but yet they're still praying for redemption. They're not doing anything about their internal makeup. They're not doing anything about their own psychology. They're not doing anything about their own spirituality, their morality, the way they live their life, the ideas by which they choose to measure the world. But this one character in the foreground, he's the one who's doing okay. He's the one who's moving in the right direction. We got another divine message in the rays of light coming out of the heavenly being. Which is interesting because you've got yellow, which is again a healing color, it's a mercurial color. We've also got a sense of red, and that red we've already spoken about being base, being bloody, being full of lust and desire. So that says to me two separate messages, which will be interpreted by two different people. Are the characters in the background praying for gain? Are they praying to not lose their job? Are they praying to get a new job? Are they praying to win the state or national lottery? Are they praying to get out of the mire? Yes, they are praying to get out of the mire. But they're not going through the changes which are required to lift them out of the mire. Although there is a spiritual message here, it doesn't necessarily mean divine intervention from some kind of being or power which has some physical presence which physically picks you up and carries you. This is a spiritual power which comes out of change, which comes out of work inside yourself, as symbolized by the death card, as symbolized by the coffin that this character in the foreground is raising above. You can tell that these two characters in the background aren't buried up to their waist in the ground, because the ground is symbolized by this brown line you see here, which is muddy and earthy and solid. Alright? So the character in the foreground is literally being raised up out of the bed of the dying to be brought into life. You know, the moment of clarity of the alcoholic, it's the it's the remission of sins through internal change, through self-analysis, or a fair, rigorous and thorough look at your own internal workings, your internal makeup. You're working out your own moral compass, working out what guides you and what directs you, and living by the right kind of code. And as a result of that, getting a help which seemingly comes from a divine source. Can you now see that tarot is actually giving you a number of moral messages, a number of spiritual messages which you wouldn't normally get? Because, you know, a person rising out of the ground is a person rising out of the ground. They have been saved. Alright, as if like he was dying, you went to hospital and he got cured. But despite the fact we've got this divine being above, doesn't necessarily mean to talk about the objective existence of a divine being. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I don't think it does. Because what is spirituality? If it isn't talking about what goes on inside your mind, what goes on inside your very being. Do you have to believe in God to be a spiritual person? No. Can you be an atheist, an out-and-out bloody atheist, and be a spiritual person? Yes. How? Through a searching, fearless, thorough, in-depth look at who you are, what you are, the forces which have brought you into the mire that you're in now, and being brave enough to look at that in sufficient detail to lift yourself up out of this proverbial grave or hell that you're in. People talk about the idea of hell, but the word hell has come from the word Gehenna, which actually just means an afterlife. It was a place in Jerusalem where all the garbage was once put, and sometimes dead bodies were put there as well. So the word Gehenna took on a spiritual or afterlife meaning rather than just anything else. So Gehenna, or hell, is a place where all people go prior to something else happening, whether it's change, learning, or just moving straight onto the heavenly sphere. So if there's hell imagery, it doesn't necessarily mean anything bad. When we're talking about the spirits who obsess or possess people in spirit possession cases, we talk about something called a daibak, which is an attachment, namely a spirit which has attached itself to a living person. And therefore we have to, as exorcists, treat the spirit which has done the possessing as well as the person who is possessed, using prayerful, meditative, and all the rest of it techniques, as I'm sure you've realized by now. So this could also be talking about a supernatural being, a ghost, a shade of the dead, who also needs your help through prayer, meditation, and spiritual contact. But that is not the main message of this card. Tarot is there for the living, spirituality is there for the living, and therefore it's telling you to be brave and take a good, hard, moral look at yourself so that you can get yourself out of the rubbish that you're in. And it can be a lifelong process.